hey, have you ever heard of... Or maybe... Well, what about... Can I just... Oh...
Of course you've heard of Star Wars. More than ever, the title has been plastered everywhere. With Disney's acquisition of the franchise from creator George Lucas, this endless universe of stories seems to be churning out more and more content.
But is that a good thing?
I was really excited for The Force Awakens. I'd been dreaming of more Star Wars content since Revenge of the Sith was released in 2005. At the time, it was the only Star Wars movie I had seen in the theater, and the only one I was able to. All hope seemed lost for a young Star Wars nerd who wanted that big screen experience. And it didn't help that games like Star Wars Battlefront 3 would constantly be rumored, but never brought into fruition.
So yes, I was very excited for The Force Awakens, okay? The hype was real.
Old fans and new fans waited with bated breath for the J.J. Abrams reboot. It was still being scored by the legendary John Williams, and rumor had it that George Lucas's ideas were still being taken into account.
Then again, rumor also had it that Jedi Mickey was going to fight Darth Donald. And the movie came, and it went. And it was decent.
It was a complete rehash of the original movie from 1977. Lonely character on a desert planet gets called into action, has special powers that needed to be refined, makes some friends, some recognizable to us, and blows up the big planet-killing machine at its one weak spot.
To be fair, that's pretty much the exact same plot as Top Gun Maverick, but the difference is that sequel was actually better than the original film, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. See, rehashing isn't the worst idea. I mean, it's a safe bet.
There was enough nostalgia and enough novelty to make the movie entertaining. There was a lot of promise with these new characters, especially Finn. But there was also a lot wrong. The awesome power of an evil Nazi-esque empire was dwindled to a few angry quote-unquote leaders. They were either cowardly or immature. The foreboding presence of Darth Vader, calm, cool, and collected, but a serious, powerful, ruthless threat, was no more. The respect amongst ranks was no longer there. Darth Vader was below Tarkin in rank, and though he disagreed with him, he respected the hierarchy. The dichotomy between Kylo and Hux is the same, but with no respect. Kylo simply flings him around like a plaything, completely destroying any semblance of fearful respect we might have held for Hux. The next two sequels are hardly worth discussing further. Disney claims there was a plan for the trilogy, but honestly, it seems like saying that there was no plan would have sounded a lot better than saying it was, because if this was genuinely their plan, it was not a very good plan, y'all.
But aren't I just an angry nerd who cares too much about a fictional universe and will never quite be satisfied with any new content because the nostalgia outweighs all? Kinda.
I am satisfied with some of the Star Wars content that Disney has put out. I think Rogue One is right up there with the original 6 films. It's a cool look at a side story from the original film and adds a unique and non-intrusive twist to the existing story. The Mandalorian series is original and explores the existing universe while being its own thing, and I'm a huge fan of the score not being a John Williams knockoff, but a totally unique sound.
Disney's sequel trilogy just misses the point, and I can sum it all up for you in one line.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
So let's break this down.
This line is already infamous for its simplicity. How did Palpatine return? You know, the big bad guy from the original 6 films that caused so much death and destruction?
Somehow.
Oh, somehow. Of course.
The Emperor is dead.
Dark science. Cloning. Secrets only the Sith knew. 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 Secrets only the Sith knew.
But they explain it more later and show that he was a clone in the comics. No. Don't hit me with the comic crap.
I could do a whole separate video on why I believe that movies should not rely on extraneous media to help fill in plot holes, especially with the cost of movie tickets right now, and really the cost of everything right now.
But in the movie, Palpatine explains it more by saying,
"The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural."
Right, a callback to one of his famous lines. But let's keep it vague enough so that our publishing teams can explain it in the new books that we're going to write and publish and sell.
But I don't really want to focus on the ambiguity of his return. What bothers me the most is that he returns in the first place.
Look, the original Star Wars was a mess in production. The threat of budget cuts from the studio, time constraints, and many other factors made it a collection of footage in desperate need of post-production magic to make it a story. The genius of George Lucas comes from the fact that he evolved his story in each sequel while making everything airtight. In Empire, it's revealed that Vader was Luke's father. Suddenly the tone shifts from, let's get the big bad guy, to, can Luke redeem his father? The prequels add another layer of depth to the character of Anakin, and I think they really shift the whole 6-movie story to being the story of Anakin, not Luke. Anakin is this prophesized boy with great powers, who is said will bring balance to the Force. He's trained to grow stronger, and it seems that the prophecy is on track, but he's tempted by darkness with the promise to keep his lover alive, who he believes is in danger. The darkness corrupts him, guided by Palpatine, who eventually makes Anakin snap and turn fully to the dark side. He kills children, starts a war, an empire, betrays his mentor and best friend. And when all of that is said and done, Anakin is quite literally a husk of his former self, barely alive, and the prophecy seems to be lost. But then, a new hope. Luke Skywalker, his son, sheltered on a remote planet and protected by Anakin's former mentor, comes onto the scene. He goes through training, learns the truth about his father, and is now on a mission to redeem his father. That brings us to Return of the Jedi. Luke turns himself in to confront Vader. Vader and Palpatine try to get Luke to turn to the dark side, but Luke resists. He tries to talk his father out of the darkness. He's convinced there's still good in him. He reluctantly fights him, but more defensively than anything.
Until Darth Vader learns of Luke's
sister. So, you have a twin sister.
And then, my favorite scene in all of Star Wars happens. Much like Padme to Anakin, Luke snaps over the thought of losing his sister.
the music, the most haunting 35 seconds of Williams' score, and one of the few moments in the original trilogy where the choir is used. It almost feels out of place. We haven't really heard anything in the score up to this point that uses these types of colors and textures, and it's because this is the moment. This is the cataclysmic point that all of Star Wars has led to.
Luke begins to turn to darkness for the love of his sister. He forgets the idea of redeeming his father and brutally attacks him, cutting off his hand. Then Luke sees that maybe he's turning into him, how he's joining the dark side. It was exactly what he was trying to save his father from. He stops. He throws away his weapon. He spares Vader, and he doesn't turn. And now Vader, or Anakin, watches all of what happened. Luke's love for his sister, Luke's love for his father, Luke fighting for him to save him, and now his son is being killed by the man who corrupted him. Anakin comes back and finally kills the Emperor. In doing so, he restores balance to the Force, and the prophecy is fulfilled.
That is Star Wars. That's the entire point. It's not just the good guy versus the bad guy. It's the story of Anakin, of his family, of this prophecy that he's found himself entangled in, of the responsibility that comes with it. It's fall and redemption. It's hope. But the moment Palpatine returns, all of that gets thrown away.
Suddenly, 6 movies didn't matter. Anakin didn't matter. His sacrifice didn't matter. Luke's struggle didn't matter. The prophecy was never fulfilled by Anakin. None of it mattered. None of it meant a thing.
Because somehow, Palpatine returned.